Hello, everyone. Another lost Brit on this side of the Atlantic. We're Helm, and we're building AI co-pilots for health plan operations. Oxo AI that just went past actually was a very interesting prelude to this, because they showed you how it's like on the side of the provider. We focus on the side of the insurance plan or the payer. The elephant in the room, you've heard this all day long. It's ridiculous that it's at 950 billion. It should shrink. A lot of that is because of manual operations. If you look at the insurance side of the market, the payers, you'll find that a lot of these organizations make decisions on data, and the data that comes in is in the form of unstructured clinical documents. When you have that, you can't have a computer passing through these things. You need expensive jargon understanders or clinicians. I was a clinician myself, I guess I can make that joke. And the headwinds we're seeing here is that there's a workforce crisis. You've, again, heard this today. Millions and millions of clinicians, doctors and nurses that are leaving and exiting. And a data tsunami. Organizations like Epic and so on have led to the average medical record being longer than Shakespeare's Hamlet. When you look at the opportunity ahead for insurance companies is they don't ultimately want to hire clinicians. And these are hundreds of thousands of clinicians in the US that work full-time for insurance companies. This is not about patient-facing. And why do they hire them? Ultimately, insurance companies want to make the right decision. Do I pay for this? What should the premiums be? What is the risk? And if you can give them that without that expensive cost, cheaper, faster, and better, it's a no-brainer.
So what exactly are we doing? If you look at health plans and you focus on where they're hiring clinicians today, you'll find a long list of operations that require clinical reasoning, and they're employing these clinicians effectively to do tasks that really could be abstracted away to AI and large language models and co-pilots so that these clinicians can really focus on patients where they're required. And we're starting with the keyword of the day for the last 20 minutes or so, prior authorizations, but again on the health plan side. And the reason being is that it's a pain point across a lot of these health plans. Also, it's a very important place to start at the beginning of the patient journey. Next slide. Yeah. What is prior authorization, or at least what do we mean by prior authorization on the payer side? And just for the benefit of those of you who might not be aware, when you go into a hospital or a care provider and you require some sort of treatment like an MRI scan or a knee arthroscopy, you will have to submit a prior authorization request to a health plan or to the health plan's representative like a third-party administrator. And these third-party administrators or health plans will be hiring full-time nurses, full-time clinicians to spend hours to pore over clinical records, to compare them to medical necessity guidelines, and effectively spend hours coming to a decision which is simply yes or no. And that's something that a co-pilot can do very, very efficiently. So that's what we did. We built an AI LLM-powered co-pilot, and we've got MedWatch here as our very first partners that can now do it in minutes. And what essentially ends up happening is that nurse workflow, which began by receiving medical documents, comparing against clinical guidelines, finding evidence, and spending minutes to hours trying to do that, now reduces to a simple one-click review, and a nurse can now do, instead of 5 to 10 prior authorizations a day, 50 to 100. And we'd love to show you a demo about how that might look like for one of our customers. And I'm hoping when I press this button, it plays the video.
A prior authorization has been a request for in this case, it's not one to the any deal authorization request. Often that request would be appended with a medical vaccine application to send over from the provider to care and to illustrate here's the evidence that you need to determine this is not necessarily policy. Now, I think this is the data for an hour or 2 hours. Now, the vaccine will many of these
Can you hear this okay, or is it too... No? Well, if you mute it, I'll talk over it. We'll show you the demo after the video. But effectively what we're showing here is the flip side. So I think as Oxo demonstrated, when they put together that medical necessity package to send over to the payer has a nurse doing the exact same check through that faxed PDF record that you just saw come up on the screen. 100-page faxed PDF. Often it's a faxed PDF because there is no interoperability. It's just fax. And they have to then find the criteria that's relevant, the clinical criteria. So what we have here is a dashboard demonstration of what we do via an API, which is read the record, understand it clinically. So that involves LLMs plus traditional NLP. Understand the unstructured clinical criteria, which is like millimins or whatever the health plan is designated, and then reason over that. So on the next page, you'll see What we do is we take that criteria, which is unstructured clinical text, and programmatically turn it into a decision tree on the fly, and then break down the criteria rule by rule, and for every criteria, put together a case of where the evidence we found in a record, if there's evidence to meet or not meet, and then propose whether it's a probable approval or needs to be escalated for denial, in a way that a nurse does it today. And that's our goal. Can we reason over, not generate medical, kind of like put together medical records, can we reason over a question of, is there evidence of the failure of conservative therapy by reading through the 80 pages, pulling out the bits where it said, I gave them diclofenac and it didn't work, and put that together in a report. The same way that a nurse does you are in the plan side today. We can skip over this and then hopefully, if you want to grab a chance to see it, we'll show you later.
Awesome. Thank you, Abdul. We're starting on the payer side, as mentioned, and we began with the self-funded insurance market because it's easier to talk to these companies. The CEOs are easier to access, so it's much easier to come to a shorter sales cycle, easier to really hone in on the problem, faster product deployment. And we've also begun talking to these larger health plans because really any organization, any company, any payer that has that same problem, they're hiring full-time clinicians who really should be focused on payers, but they're now focusing on administrative tasks. These are the companies that we're working with. And of course, providers are important, but that's coming further down the line. We've already signed our first 2 enterprise pilots, covering over 3 million lives. And we have 10 plus payers in the wait list, only because we really want to prove out the use case before we start to service the rest of the demand. And we have contracts of ACVs combined worth upwards of 10 million ARR. And finally, the point I want to make is, again, prior authorization is just a starting point. It's the wedge. It's not the be-all and end-all. At the end of the day, really what we want is the prior authorization market to go to 0. It shouldn't go larger. But the clinical reasoning capabilities can be applied across the board. We specialize anywhere that clinicians have to review lengthy, unstructured clinical data, so including adjacent use cases like case management, care management, and beyond. Helm is appropriate and relevant. And I think we're a uniquely positioned team to tackle this problem. We have, you've met both of us. Abdul is a trained clinician and physician in the UK and also has experience working in AI verticals at Google. I was previously at McKinsey working on commercial strategy for AI and healthcare. Zahid, our CTO, spent 10 plus years in the insurance market as a tech lead. And finally, Chris Lovejoy, who is also a trained clinician and also an AI and ML engineer. We're backed by some of the best investors in the world, like Sequoia and Neo, including scouts from Inflection, Lightspeed, DeepMind, and Co. And we also have partnerships with OpenAI, Microsoft for startups, and similar companies. And we'd love to talk. So we're around for the rest of the day, and happy to take any questions.